Void Mage Gamer is now partnered with Flipside Gaming, so you can use the promo code on their website, all caps, Void Mage, to get 10% off all orders $10 or more. It's a great way that you can support both Flipside Gaming and Void Mage Gamer's channel. Hello guys, I know it's been a while since I've done a discussion type video, but I'm really intrigued by this next set coming up here, War of the Spark. May 3rd, 2019 is the official release date. There's a lot of talk surrounding this set in particular because there's 36 Planeswalkers in it in total, 37 including the buy-a-box promo. This is kind of similar to their approach in Dominaria, where they made so many legendary permanent types. You had Historic in Dominaria, so naturally you were going to see a lot of legendary cards in that set. But it seems like they're going to go a step further. For War of the Spark, they're going to give us a ton of Planeswalkers. And I would imagine we're going to see some uncommon Planeswalkers. If one is going to be in every single pack, it would actually be interesting to see if they even make common Planeswalkers. Planeswalkers have always kind of been controversial in Magic, mostly because it's kind of hard to find balance when you have multiple formats and you have Planeswalkers introduced quite often. This is going to introduce a whole bunch of them, and normally what you need to do is find some sort of removal. You need something like a Hero's Downfall. You need cards like these that are capable of dealing with Planeswalkers straight up or non-land permanents, something like an Assassin's Trophy. The only problem is drafting a Planeswalker is pretty difficult. Finding a Planeswalker in your pre-release pack is pretty difficult, but what's just as difficult is finding multiples of cards like Assassin's Trophy, reliable removal that can deal with Planeswalkers, because your only other answer is going to be combat damage, which does make Planeswalkers pretty darn powerful as a force in Limited. But it does feel like the balance this time around is going to be giving everybody access to Planeswalkers. Every single pack, you're going to have Planeswalkers in your decks, making it more of a game of who can win despite having to deal with an emblem or having to deal with something that you probably wouldn't be able to if you didn't have Planeswalkers of your own. Because the scenario has usually been whoever opens up one or more Planeswalkers, if you're able to emblem, you're more than likely going to win the game. And as soon as you get a Planeswalker out there, the goal for your opponent pretty much becomes deal with that Planeswalker or you're going to regret it, because the emblem could be something pretty powerful. If we're going back to Theros, this is the last time that I can really remember a Planeswalker being super dominant in Limited, in Standard. Elspeth Sun's Champion, having the plus of getting 3/1/1s, having decent removal on her minus, and having an ult that pretty much just wins you the game. The amount of removal that your opponents needed to get around this Planeswalker in particular was just insane. If she was left alone for too long, you deserve to lose the game. But she most certainly was not an easy obstacle to overcome. Planeswalkers have always been that way. They've been difficult for Limited, not as problematic in Commander because you have multiple opponents that can usually be relied upon for threat assessment. If one player doesn't have Planeswalker removal, hopefully the other two do. But in Standard, you don't always have access to Planeswalker removal. You do have to rely on your creatures, and it does make the game a lot longer, a lot more complicated, because it's pretty much a 2-on-1 fight at that point. If you think about it, when you're introduced to the game, you're told that you are a Planeswalker. You have access to spells that you acquire through your journey. When you play another Planeswalker, it is pretty much a 2-on-1 fight. What War of the Spark is introducing this time around is more access to Planeswalkers. So you're going to see Planeswalkers at the same rate, maybe even more in this set than you would enchantments, artifacts, which is super cool because the focus isn't on how do I get rid of their Planeswalker. The focus should be now, am I capable of getting further with my Planeswalkers than my opponent? And that design right there is something that I felt like they should have done a long time ago. Because for too long, Planeswalkers have been automatic bombs in Limited. There's no way that you're going to draft one of the Planeswalkers and not immediately put it into whatever deck you're building. You get them out there, and even if you don't get to ult them, they're immediate targets for removal, allowing you to get your other creatures out there, build up your forces, and likely beat them anyway. And ultimately, Planeswalkers have benefited in a way that other permanent types have. Pretty much anything that's non-creature that's really good is going to have the benefit of a lack of removal, because most removal in Limited at the common and uncommon level is going to be for creatures, which there's a ton of creatures that are bombs in Limited, but the biggest bombs are more than likely going to be Planeswalkers with good abilities, and usually removal that's going to deal with non-land permanents or just deal with Planeswalkers is going to be at the rare level, which isn't the easiest thing to draft reliably, making it very difficult to deal with Planeswalkers just because of design alone. So some people are torn about this set, they don't like the fact that we're getting a ton of Planeswalkers, they just don't like the Planeswalker card type. I can understand that, but it will be interesting to see if the balance ends up working, because the focus of the set doesn't have to be Planeswalker removal if everybody has access to Planeswalkers. It might make the games considerably slower. I think that's something that should be noted. When you have to deal with Planeswalkers, trying to prevent them from ultimating, the focus is taken right off of your opponent's life total. And don't be surprised if you end up ending your matches in ties because you're unable to get to a game 3 because your first 2 games just last that long. That could also be another problem. So game length is something to consider as well. You want the game to be fun and enjoyable. That doesn't always mean it should be incredibly long, so we're going to see if this balance works out. But relative to Commander, Planeswalkers are perfect. I don't think there's any real problem with Planeswalkers in Commander. We have access to pretty much every single one, and usually if someone gets a Karn out there or a Nicol Bolas, most people are attentive and they're going to want to deal with that problem as soon as it gets out there. 1v1, it's very difficult, and unless you have a Planeswalker of your own or you have reliable removal, you're going to be screwed. And also in Commander, we just see more enchantments. We see cards that you probably don't see in other formats. So we have a ton of non-land removal. We have a ton of Planeswalker-specific removal that's already pretty popular in the format. Just a lot of ways that we can deal with Planeswalkers. This includes board wipes, exiling removal. There just seems to be more answers in the Commander format. And even if you don't have an answer, one of your opponents should definitely have one. But anyway, guys, that's just going to do it for this video. That's just my opinion on War of the Spark. I am cautiously optimistic, like I am for most things Magic related. Planeswalkers have always been an interesting thing since they introduced them way back in Lorwyn. And there's a right way to do them, and there's definitely a wrong way to do them. And they're going to do something that we haven't seen them do before, introduce them in every single pack. 37 in total, including the box topper. This should be interesting to see what they do. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful day. Voidier signing off. See you all next video.